Welcome back. I'm Bill Berry with help from Stu Ransom, and this is section 6. It's preparing the grievance. And if you finish section 5, you'll know how much I stress the importance of preparation. Alexander Graham Bell said before anything else, preparation is the key to success. 90% of a successful grievance is what you do before you actually go in to meet with management. It's what you have in your pocket. Call it the H factor. So if you ever have a training with me and I'm talking about the H factor, you'll know I'm talking about preparation, preparation, preparation. One thing which is very important, and I want to come back to this, and I'm particularly talking to you new stewards out there. And one of the things we find in doing trainings is that there is a wide range of experience between officers and stewards who come to the trainings. Some of them have many years of experience and know how to do it and know the vocabulary of grievances. And many of you are very, very new. And so it's important to understand what is called the grievance vocabulary. And a vocabulary is exactly like working for a transit system. It has its own vocabulary. And so you need to know what they are. As I said, some of these terms may be familiar to you, but many of them are not. And so please go back in your documents and get that grievance overview. It's very important. It's got all the things in it, and I suggest you print it out and keep it with you in your steward's folder, because it looks at what you do as a steward, your R responsibilities. It lists what is a grievance, and we're going to be talking about that in this session here. But it looks at grievance vocabulary, and they have a very, very important terms that you need to be able to use. A couple of terms that we're going to be looking at are reactive grievance, and this is most common in the servicing model. When management does something and the union responds. The employer disciplines one of your members, you respond. Management doesn't pay overtime, you respond. Management won't fix a safety condition, you respond. In the organizing model, a proactive grievance is when the steward hears a problem in the workplace and starts a grievance to try and solve it. This is very, very important because it makes the union look important to all of the members. It makes it look like the union is aggressive and alert, because often members don't see themselves as the union, and you as a steward are the face of the union for them. This is a mistake, of course, and we want to try and get our members involved, but in reality, often the steward is looked at as the person of the union. It's also very important because it makes your non-members get involved, because conditions that affect your members also affect the non-members. And what you want to do is go to them and say, look, we are going to wage a war on improving this condition. And it's going to improve it for our members. It's also going to improve it for you. And so we need you to participate. We need you to be part of this grievance. We need you to testify if we ask for it. We need you to provide documentation. And oh yeah, this is going to cost money, so how about you join and show management that we're all together. And as I said, internal organizing, signing up non-members is very, very important part of the grievance procedure and of your responsibilities as a steward. Here are some common vocabulary terms that I'm going to use, and I'm repeating them because I want to make sure that you understand what they are. You can have a grievance, and a grievance is a procedure under the terms of your collective bargaining agreement. You can have an individual grievance, that is, it applies immediately to one person, to a discipline, to not getting overtime, to not being awarded a job. You can have a group grievance, and that is one which affects a lot of people. For example, a safety and health grievance, if there are fumes in the garage, if there are unsafe conditions on the buses. This is something which affects everybody, and the union can file as a group, and we'll talk about the value of a group grievance to build leverage. You can have a union or policy grievance. Sometimes companies, for example, in order to antagonize the union, will stop the checkoff or stop recognizing stewards. And so the grievance will be filed on behalf of the union as a policy question. We talked in the last session about the importance of the fact sheet. And I cannot stress enough how valuable a good fact sheet is for you. Steps and time limits. You need to look at your contract. What is the grievance procedure? What are the steps? Where do you start? What's the appeal process? Most importantly, what are your time limits? How long do you have to file for each step? Because if you miss your time limit, you may blow the whole grievance. Because you can have a good, solid grievance on the facts, and if you miss your time limits, management can say, well, I'm sorry, you didn't get it in on time, and so what was a good principle is lost because you have messed up the procedure. You can get extensions on your time limits if there's information that you need or extenuating circumstances, but always be aware of what it is. A remedy is what you want from the grievance, and you need to spell it out in the grievance itself. If you look at the vocabulary grievance overview, we use a VCR, violation, contract, and remedy. You need to tell the company what they have to do. A settlement, as we have talked about before, is something which is less than a remedy, but it's suitable, acceptable to the union. And we'll be talking about this later. I just talked about a reactive grievance and a proactive grievance, and those are things which you need to be aware. We need to talk about a divisive grievance. What if a particular group in the workplace feels that another group is harassing them? One of the most common divisive grievances is sexual harassment of one member to another. And we're going to be talking about those more when we talk about tough issues of grievances. But a divisive grievance is one which may split the members, and you need to plan your strategy accordingly. We've talked about organizing around grievances. How can you build leverage? How can you get your members involved? How can you get the riders involved? You may need the community involved to help give you leverage to win a particular case. And finally, in the last session, we talked about Weingarten rights as the minimum wage. That is, that's the least you should ask for having a member go in and meet with management. But better, you should have an absolute ironclad provision that anytime a member goes in the office to meet with management, a union rep goes with him or her. And that's just a way of protecting you, it's a way of protecting the contract, and it's a way of letting the management know that the union is strong, alert, and vigilant. So you can review your document here, know your union contract. You also need to review that grievance overview, which has these vocabulary terms in them. So we're now coming back to how do you present the grievance? And this is when you have finished your investigation, you've talked with your boss about the situation and trying to resolve it, you have to decide now what. If you have gotten what you need, there's not any reason to follow up with a grievance. For example, if a member was denied overtime or should have been called in on a shift and wasn't, and management says, yeah, you're right, we owe them, we'll pay. You've done. But what you want to do is to send your boss a letter confirming that this is a solution. That as a result of a meeting between the ATU steward and management X, employee A will be reimbursed for 6 hours of overtime for not being called on September 5th, 2017. And you just send it to them. And you keep that as part of your grievance file. So the next time, if a similar situation comes up, you've got it. And there's also no dispute between your member about what they were supposed to get. And if the company has agreed to pay them, you want to make sure that you check with your member that they got the money. However, When the boss says no, which they often do, and they go to no school to learn how to say no, you need to get with the others of the stewards and decide what you want to do. As I said, and we'll be talking about this in just a minute, we talk about duty of fair representation. You're not required by law or good union practice to file a grievance if you don't see a way to win or you don't see some organizing potential in it. And these are areas that a strategy discussion about it will be very important, and it's something that all the members of the officers and steward will be involved in. One of the things that you may want to consider as you prepare the grievance is a group grievance, and this is a strategy. And what happens is if you have a situation, for example, a bad health and safety condition in one of the garages, you want to have a group grievance. The servicing model of grievances is if you've got 30 people in the garage breathing bad air, the steward files it and goes in and meets with management. I'm going to suggest to you that a way to build leverage and to build visibility for the union is you file it as a group grievance. That is, you have all the members sign it. You can even ask non-members who were affected by the case to sign it as well. This means that you have suddenly gained huge visibility in the workplace. Everybody's talking about the grievance. It's also true that each of the members who've signed it, and non-members, has a right to appear at a grievance hearing. And one thing that companies don't want to do is waste a lot of time by having you on company time in meeting with management. And so it's more likely that they will settle a group grievance just to get you off your back. And as I said, you always want to plan in your strategies how you're going to win your grievance. If you file a group grievance, you may want to create activities around that to publicize your case. You may want to have people wear gas masks to work or other masks if it's a workplace issue of the quality of the indoor air. One union is asking their members to wear Band-Aids as a sign of support in negotiations. It's just a visible way for management to know that the members are all together in behind a particular grievance. This involves communication with your members, particularly if you have many sites. If you have a large local, you're working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day all over the city, you need to have a good communications network, which we'll be talking about here in a little while, so that everybody knows what's going on. You have all the stewards active and working on this case. And again, to repeat, if you are in an open shop situation, these are situations, these are times when you can really make an effort to sign up your non-members. Here's an example. This is a long time ago, and this is not in the United States, but it's one of my favorites. How did members here? They had an expression of their unhappiness. What did they do? Well, they set fire to a few sofas in the lobby, they broke furniture, and they shouted anti-management slogans. And the reason was a management communications problem. I'm certainly not suggesting that your solution is to go break furniture and set fire to sofas, but I'm simply showing you what happens when people are very, very angry. So, go take a break, and we'll be back in just a minute with the second part of this session.